If you can understand the ocean, you can do whatever you want with it and it becomes a playground. It's the most beautiful thing to enjoy.
Welcome to the Surf Mastery Podcast. We interview the world's best surfers and the people behind them to provide you with education and inspiration to surf better.
You are in control of the wave, not the wave's in control of you.
Today's guest is G. Cormack. She's the head surf coach and founder of Chix Surf School in Sydney, Australia, with nearly 10 years experience as a surf coach, as well as she spent some time with the Australian Snowboarding Olympic Development Team. More information about her at her website at chixsurfschool.com.au. That's Chix spelled C-H-I-X, surfschool.com.au. And this is a really cool interview. I've interviewed a few surf coaches as well as worked with a lot of surf coaches on my own surfing, and she brings a really refreshing perspective to surf coaching. Most of the surf coaches I've interviewed and worked with are very technical, but G goes a lot deeper than that. She talks almost poetically at times about surfing. I really enjoyed this interview. I have personally listened to it multiple times, got so much out of it. I hope you guys enjoy this as well. The first 7 minutes of this interview I made a rookie mistake. We started kind of talking shop before I had set up the audio equipment, but I managed to record some of what we talked about leading up to the mic'd interview. The audio is pretty scratchy, but I decided to include it because there's so many gold nuggets in that first 7 minutes. So please just bear with the first 7 minutes in regards to the audio quality, and the rest of the podcast was done with the proper equipment. Also would love to hear you guys' feedback on Facebook on this one. Enjoy.
I love free surfing, and I think when you're surfing, I really soul surf. I really find what my own rhythm is, and I don't want to be in someone else's rhythm.
How do you define soul surfing?
I think like what I try and teach in the school is people naturally, as they're learning, compare themselves to other people. You know, they sort of go, oh, I see that person doing that out there and I want to be able to do that, or I really struggle with this and I don't see that person doing that, so what am I doing wrong? You know, they're naturally comparing themselves to other people. You need to find what your rhythm is in the water. You need to find what your relationship is with the ocean. All of our bodies work differently. Our bodies have had different experiences throughout our life. And so it's finding what your happy medium, that balance is with you, your surfing ability, your headspace, and what the water's doing. And so that's a rhythm. You know, a good surfer, a beautiful surfer is someone that dances on a wave. So you need to find what your rhythm is so that you can dance on a wave.
How does the concept of mastery tie in with that? Or if you don't like the word mastery, just the concept of always improving, so that you never... There's an analogy I use, which is of a fruit. So a fruit, it's always growing, right, until the point where it's ripe, and as soon as it's ripe, it begins to rot.
Yeah.
So, and progression doesn't necessarily have to mean like, oh, I'm always trying to turn better, or it could be that you're getting older but you're maintaining a certain level. That in itself is a progression. So how does the idea of that fit in with not comparing yourself with others?
I think the beauty of surfing is that you never get to that stage where you start to rot, because every day is different. Every day the ocean provides us with a different environment, and it's how we adjust our surfing to accommodate for those needs. So every day I think you want to practice something different, or learn something, or try a different board, or deal with certain wind conditions or certain wave conditions. And so you're always, even as an advanced surfer, and I'm in the water 8 hours a day. You know, I'm in the water 6 days a week with work, and then I have a day off and I'm in the water as well. And every day I surf differently. Some days I feel stiffer, so I need to surf in a way that accommodates for the injuries that I have, or, you know, and so it always is bringing out a different part of our surfing. And when I'm doing a surf check with my students, we always look at the surf, read what the water's doing, and say, okay, well, this is probably something that we're going to work on today, because that's the conditions that we're being given. But then when we go out there, a lot of the time, the conditions tend to give us something different, and we end up working on something else because the currents were maybe stronger, and that meant that the wave provided a different section to what we were expecting. So I don't think you ever get to a certain stage where you're fully satisfied with the surfing, because every day is a challenge.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean?
Yep.
So I think you can be confident in your surfing ability and say, okay, I can do all these different things, so I'm a pretty competent surfer. But whether you've ever mastered the sport, or whether you're ever at a stage where you go, I know everything, I don't think... Well, for me personally, I can only talk about myself personally, but I don't think I would ever get to that stage, because every day is different.
Yeah, you're right, and that is the concept of mastery, is that you never get there.
Yeah.
It's not a destination.
Yeah,
it's always a journey.
And that's the great thing about surfing, is that if you can go into that headspace in the water and go, what is the ocean going to provide me with today? What am I going to learn today? You're an open book, you know, and you're always willing to accept things, and if you're open-minded in the water, you tend to notice different things. If you're closed off and you're only solely focusing on one thing, you know, unless you're trying to do progression on something, you tend to not notice other things that actually can be beneficial. So, yeah, I don't know. It's a difficult question, that one. I don't think you ever really get to that stage.
Yeah, I'm just trying to... If I was to put what you just said into my own words or into my own thoughts on progression, it sounds like learning to read the ocean and learning to be more self-aware, that's where the progression might lie.
Yeah, definitely. Surfing, anyone can stand up on a surfboard. Absolutely anyone. And so many women come to me who have been surfing for 10, 15 years, and they say to me, I just can't quite get myself onto that wave at the right time, you know, or I just can't lock my body onto the wave properly, or I'm just missing that last section of a wave, you know. They're not learning how to really read the water. And a lot of my work with Chix Surf School is sitting there on the beach and sitting with my students and watching the water, and teaching them how to pay attention to the smallest detail, so that they can then visualize themselves on the wave and see what their body needs to do. And so that when we go out there, you've kind of made that commitment to the water. And because you've visualized it, you see the wave differently. It's not such a surprise. You kind of go, oh yeah, no, I watched it and I imagined myself on that wave, so I can kind of get an idea of what I need my body to do. And you tend to get into a rhythm much quicker than just running. You know, I see people just grabbing their board and running out into the water, and you know, it's a very flustered, busy headspace to be in, and then they have to resettle themselves out there, and that can take a while. You know, if you actually stop, sit on the beach, do your stretches, look at what the water's doing, visualize yourself on the wave, you naturally are getting in rhythm without kind of realizing it. You say to someone, okay, well, you know, we've got to get out the back, but you don't want to be focusing on trying to get out there. You really just want to concentrate, what do I need to do to get out there? And there's something that I use in my school all the time, and I used it on myself when I was younger and I was training. What do I need to do? What do I actually need my body to do? What do I need my board to do? What do I need the environment to do? You know, what do we need to do to have that end result that we're looking for? And if you understand your ability, and you understand how your body works, and you understand how the board works, you can do anything. But if you ask yourself that simple question of what do I need to do to be able to ride that wave, you can actually put all of those skills together and just do it. Instead of going, what do I want to do, or what should I do, you just go, what do I need to do to be able to ride that wave? You know, it's a really good thing to use, I find, because if you know your body ability, then you just do it. And if you're that light in your frame of mind when you're surfing, I find people surf beautifully when they're like that. You know, it's that real, they're light when they surf. They just dance on a wave because they just do it. They know what they need to do and they just do it.
So I asked you about the concept of mastery and progression.
Yes.
And you kind of shied away from it, I think, because it brings connotations of when we think of progressing or being better as surfers, it's always relative to other surfers, and that can put pressure on us in the water. But then after talking with you, I sort of thought, well, in my opinion, people are always progressing. There's always the concept of mastery is always running somewhere. And you sort of said it was along the lines of learning to read the ocean better and to be more self-aware. So, and you just mentioned self-awareness in terms of people knowing what they need to do to ride a wave.
Yeah.
And how does self-awareness fit into that equation for you, and how do you talk to your clients about that?
I think for me personally, when I'm surfing, it's all about my mental state at that time and how I can release emotion out in the water. And so a lot of people use the ocean as a form of therapy, right? It's a way that we can feel reconnected to ourselves, or we can let out aggression, or, you know, we can just calm ourselves down before starting a big day or whatever it is. And I think that, you know, if you can really understand your environment, then you can really get the most out of it. And I think when you were asking me about mastery, I think people are forever improving, they're forever changing, and our environments are forever changing. And you can always have ideas of how good you want to be and what tricks you want to do and how you wish to surf. But if you put too much pressure on that and too much expectation, you end up forgetting about the journey of getting there. And so I guess everyone's perception of mastery is different. You know, what do you want to, you know, obviously we're talking about the surfing side of things, but, you know, what do you want to get out of your surfing? Is it that you just want to be a good surfer that everyone looks at or pays attention to? Or is it that you want to be able to find your groove in the water and just be able to enjoy it? A lot of women that come to me are like, I just want to go out there and enjoy it. That's all I want to do. That's their end goal. If they can do that, then they're happy. And so you really need to find what that end result is, and if there is an end result, if you think that you get to a certain stage and you've suddenly got it, or whether it's something that is a lifetime goal. So, yeah, I don't really know how to answer the question of, you know, the mastery side of it.
You have answered it. Yeah.
I feel like I've maybe dabbled in it a little bit, but
I think the concept of mastery is a journey. It's not a destination.
Yeah.
Therefore, it kind of can't really be defined, and it's also individual.
Yeah, exactly. I can only speak about my experience, and when women come to me at my work, you know, I always say to them, they'll send me a big long email, or we'll sit on the beach before a class, and I'll say, what is it that you actually want out of this? You know, you tell me what you need, and I'll see if I can accommodate for those needs, because I can only ever give you my experience. And we can try and alter that to see if it accommodates for your needs. But, you know, I feel now more than ever with my understanding of why I surf, I really know why I'm doing it. And that now this is probably the most confident I've ever been with my surfing. It doesn't mean that my surfing is phenomenal or I'm the best or anything like that, but I know that I surf beautifully because I understand why I'm out there, and that for me gives me a real sense of confidence, and I feel I'm a confident surfer because I know why I'm doing it. And so for me, that's my end goal is really understanding why am I in the water.
So why do you surf?
For many different reasons, as I'm sure we all do, but it grounds me. That's the most important thing. I have a phenomenally busy life, as we all do, but the ocean really brings me back down to the core of who I am. And to be in rhythm with something external that I can never control, to put flippers on and to just move in that whitewash I find it a really good release emotionally. And I think that it allows me to really appreciate my environment. And it's the really cool thing is my first daughter, who's 4, she has that now. My pop, when I was 2, taught me how to body surf. And he said that this is the first steps to being a good surfer. You need to get in rhythm with the water. And I've taken that with me my whole life is, if you can understand the ocean, you can do whatever you want with it and it becomes a playground. It's the most beautiful thing to enjoy. And I'm really at that stage now. And so I think that's why I surf, is to be able to dance on a wave and to do it with a smile on my face and someone look at me and go, you really inspire me, it's an honour. It's an amazing feeling. So I think that's why I surf. It makes me happy.
Awesome. So how would you coach someone to be in rhythm with the wave or the ocean?
I think I allow them to explain to me why they feel they need to be in the water. And at the beginning, it's normally just stock standard things. Oh, I don't know, I just kind of like splashing around out there, or my partner surfs and he looks like he's having so much fun, or, but as we start to break that down a little bit over time and exposure to the water and getting them to actually see the different conditions and how we can benefit from that, they actually find their own rhythm. But you have to be vulnerable enough to do it. People really, they learn a lot about themselves and why they need to be in the water through what we do in the water. And it's really cool. It's a very different way to surf. And they progress in their surfing with it because they're learning to get in rhythm with the ocean. As I said, anyone can stand up on a surfboard, but if you can find that groove and you can learn to read the water properly, you can do anything on it. So,
Can we break it down a little bit? What would be some strategies to learn to read the ocean better?
Well, you've got your basics of understanding wave size, wave formation, so high and low tides, wind directions on and offshore winds, which is, your stock standard stuff. But looking at those conditions, every single class that we do, and then we compare them to the last class. And we say, okay, so in the last class, what did that bring out in your surfing? And then after a class, sitting there and acknowledging that session and saying, okay, we now know that with those conditions, this is how we benefited from that. Or this is what that brought out in our surfing. So they start to go, oh, okay. And then we have another class and they go, oh, yeah, so the winds are onshore like they were in the last class, but the wave is slightly different. So they're starting to see the different types of conditions and what it brings out in your surfing. It's the basics of understanding how to read the ocean. And as we start to dive into each condition a little bit more, we go, okay, so see with that swell direction on this beach, it actually provides us with more of a left-hand wave, and on the higher tide, that actually holds up a little bit more, or, whatever it is. And they start to piece the puzzles together. And as they're more exposed to the ocean, they're naturally progressing in their surfing. And if I get them to shift their surfing a little bit to accommodate for that wave, they're just starting to get into that rhythm. And the more they start to get into that rhythm, the more they open up to acknowledging the different types of surf and what it brings out in their surfing and how it makes them feel. And some days when it's bigger and they're going, oh, I'm not sure, and they naturally close off, their bodies close off and they hesitate and they start to breathe heavier, we work through that. And so we then, if it's within their ability, we get them out there and we sit out there with them and teach them how to be confident in that environment. You don't have to catch 10 waves in this surf. You can catch only one if that's what you want to do. We can sit out here for 15 minutes and just feel what the water's doing and time the sets and see how fast that water is coming in. So they're learning to feel the water. I get a lot of people to just have their hands floating on top of the water and feel what it's doing. And as they do that, they relax more. So that when they go for a wave, they're actually more confident in doing it. And I always say to almost all of my students, you are in control of the wave, not the wave's in control of you. And it's something that reflects in everyone surfing, every single person that surfs. You can see whether they're in control of the wave and their body is strong and confident and they're feeding down the line, or they hesitate and they lean back and they tend to fall off a wave, or they miss the wave, or whatever it is, because they're closed off. They're waiting for the wave to take them, not taking the wave themselves.
Okay, that's an interesting sentence.
Yes.
I've never heard that before.
No, that's a little Chix Surf School one.
You're in control of the wave.
Yeah, you are. You're in control of how you want to ride that wave, not the wave's in control of you. So don't turn around and paddle and wait for that wave to hit you. Keep your eye on it. Find where you want to be on that wave. You pop up when you're ready and you ride down the line. You do what you want to do on that wave. Don't wait for the wave to come behind you and slap you on the back of the head, because then you have to readjust.
So that's sort of, obviously that sentence can't be taken 100% literally, but that's how it feels when you're in rhythm.
Yeah, you're in control of what you're doing. You want to be controlled in an uncontrolled environment. So I go down to the beach and I say, okay, these are my conditions that I have today. I can't control those conditions, but how do I control my body so that I can work in rhythm with the water and do what I want to do? You're not fighting the environment, you're trying to work with it, but you can't control what the water's doing that day. So how do you accommodate for its needs? And if you're not fighting the water, you're in rhythm with the water. And if you're in rhythm with the water, it's a pretty enjoyable thing to do.
Yeah.
I reckon.
No, I agree. It's an interesting sentence. I've never thought of it like that.
A lot of people sit there and go, hold on a second, I need to absorb that one. And I'm like, yes, absorb it, because it's a really cool thing. When you think about it like that, it makes you feel better, it makes you feel stronger and more confident. And, my main focus is with women. I do coach some men, and I've been coaching for 10 years, for 8 years I coached men and women. But my focus is women because I love being out in an all-men's water environment. I love being in the crowd of men and giving it my all, and I grew up with that. I was the only surfer in my group of friends. So, but I always see women sitting off the shoulder, out in the distance, looking over, wanting to catch that wave, but just not feeling confident to do it. And it makes me sad. And they're just as capable of doing the things that the guys are doing. They just, because they sit on the shoulder, they don't catch as many waves, they don't improve as fast, and it's really damaging. And I've had someone come and be a part of some of my schools who's a guy, and he was just doing some of the filming and stuff, and he had never really been exposed to women's surfing before, and he came to a couple of the clinics, and he's like, wow, they really listen and they do exactly what you want them to do. And I said, well, yeah, it's that basic principle of, if you give a man and a woman a surfboard and neither of them have ever surfed before, most of the time the man will grab the board, take it out, go out into the surf and go, if I can't figure it out, I'll come to you and ask you for help. Whereas a woman will hold the board and go, okay, well, what do I do with it? They want the information. They want you to tell them what they need to do. And so their progression can be phenomenally fast. Men have that confidence straight away. Women lack it. And so their progression is slower. So the beauty of my work is that these women progress phenomenally fast. And it's not me giving them, of course I'm giving them skills, but it's boosting their confidence. They know what to do because they listen. It's just implementing it out there. And so if we can do some on-land training, I work with a Smooth Start product, and it's phenomenal because it allows me to teach them body rotation, how to move their bodies in the water. And then I get them to implement that in the water. It's like instant. It just works. And so the more it works, the more their confidence is, goes up. The more waves they catch, the better they feel. So
it sounds like, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like what's holding most surfers back, from your experience, is the anxiety.
I can only talk about my, the women that I work with. A lot of it is I call it anxiety because it's this hesitation and this feeling of inability to do something, and the nerves of their environment. There's a whole bunch of men out there, or they don't want to get, most of them say, I just don't want to get in their way. And so they're not reading the crowd. I teach people how to read a crowd. How do you actually read the people out in the water? Who's a good surfer? Who isn't a good surfer? Who you should stay away from? Who you can sit closer to? You need to understand your environment so that you can surf the way you want to. If you're out there and there's a beginner, stay away from them. They don't know what they're doing. Okay, but if they're on a wave and they can only go straight, and you've got a right-hand option, take it. Because they're not going to catch that wave properly. So you're getting more waves instantly. If there's a more advanced person and you're an able surfer, you can sit closer to them because they know what they're doing. They're not going to run into you, and you know how to control your board and your environment. But chances are you're not going to get as many waves because they're going to be going down the line, So you need to be able to read the crowd, see who's out there. And maybe there's a really good bank and there's 15 people on it, and that may be where all the waves are. But then there's another little bank that isn't as good, but there's no one on it. Which one would you rather sit on? I know for me, I'd rather sit on the less crowded bank, get 10 times more waves and readjust my surfing instead of fighting out in frustrating surf because it's really good and not getting anything. You need to read your environment so that we can benefit from it.
And reading the environment, it sounds like it's a key concept in the way you work with others.
Yeah, definitely. You have to be aware of your environment. Surfing is very much external, and that's why I think it's so therapeutic. It's such a good way to re-heal yourself because you are still in the external environment. You're not closed off in a room where you're like, my head and blah, blah, blah. You're actually outside. You're around other people. You're in the sunlight. You're in, a moving environment, and you're connecting with something that's external, and that's instantly therapeutic, I think.
When did you see the steepest learning curve in your own surfing? I would have to say when I started coaching 10 years ago now. And I would say that the learning curve came in my confidence. We were coaching massive hours every day in the water with only 2 days off every second weekend. And having that extreme exposure to the water, and then having to have other people as people I had to look after in the water, forced me to read the ocean in a different way. And so I started to break everything down. Instead of going out for a surf and not really paying attention to too much except for the fact that it was, 3 foot A-frame wave on a beachy, whatever. I had to start seeing where the danger zones are, how shallow it is, actually really
what the ocean was doing, what it's going to do, what it was doing the night before, and being in the water every single day meant that I was in rhythm with the tides. I was in rhythm with the conditions, whether it was winter or summer or onshore or offshore, whatever it was. It allowed me to adjust my surfing to accommodate for those needs. And also, we were on foam boards. We were on big foam boards, teaching on big foam boards, and I'm a shortboard rider. So it exposed me to a very different type of surfing. It showed me that you can have fun on anything that you ride. You just have to change your surfing. And so my surfing progressed because I really understood my environment. And yeah, I would have to say when I started coaching, and the more I coached, the better I became. Because and seeing other people's mistakes, you see someone else make a mistake, you go, oh yeah, I shouldn't do that too. And you can see the effects of making that mistake. So instead of someone going, oh, you shouldn't look down at your board, you should always be looking down the line at where you want to go, right? You're like, yeah, okay, cool. But if you haven't seen the effects of that, you kind of dismiss it a little bit until you see someone do it and you go, oh, yeah, they fully nosedived, and you're like, oh, okay, because if you look down, your weight goes slightly forward, it puts pressure on the nose and forces you to go down. You got to keep your head up. It brings your shoulders back. It equals your weight out, and so that you can feed down the line better. All those sorts of things. I was able to break down surfing to the finest detail because I saw every kind of mistake you could have seen. And it allowed my surfing to progress because I implemented everything they did wrong in my surfing. So I'd have to say coaching when I started coaching.
Interesting. Would you agree with the statement that the best surfers are the ones that are able to read the ocean and the waves the best?
Or it depends on what you classify as the best surfer.
That's up to your...
I think I have a really cheesy thing that I say to people. The best surfer isn't the one catching the most waves, it's the one with the biggest smile on their face. And I really believe that. Someone can ride a wave really well, but if they're in that aggressive space, I don't think it looks right. So yeah, it depends on what you classify as the best surfer. You have a competitive surfer who's maybe the best in the world, but do I not necessarily think that they're a beautiful surfer or they're a graceful surfer or they're dancing on a wave? For me, I think that I see it slightly different. It's really about their headspace. I know a couple of beautiful longboard riders and beautiful shortboard riders, women who are so light on their feet because they love it. They love what they're doing, and they're not doing it for any other reasons but to make themselves happy. And I look at people like that, and I want to be that surfer. For me, they're the best surfers.
So if we take that example, you mentioned their headspace. Do you think how important is that?
I think it's phenomenally important because for me, I think it determines how they surf, whether they're heavy on their feet or they're light. I think when you're clear-headed and you do a single focus, you're much lighter on your feet when you surf because your body language changes. When you're anxious or you've got a lot on your plate or you're tired or you're frustrated, whatever it is, you tend to be much more closed off when you surf, and so you're quite heavy on your feet. Whereas when you go out there and you have no expectations and you just want to be in the water, and if you get a couple of good waves, awesome, that's a bonus. They're much lighter on their feet and they're more open. Their shoulders are more open. They tend to rotate much better because they're not so stiff. So I think, and that happens with my surfing a lot as well. I know that sometimes I'm like, I just want to nut out this one thing in my surfing, whether it's a more vertical top hand turn or, whatever it is. And I'll go out there with the expectation that that's what I'm going to nut out in that surf. And when I don't, I don't surf well. I don't surf well at all. And I'll come in and friends that I surf with, they will say like, "Oh, dude," and I'm like, "Yeah, sorry, I was in my head, I was all in my head." And then other times I have no expectations, the conditions aren't that good, I just want to get in the water, and I'll do things that I haven't done before, and people will comment on it. You're such a beautiful, you're such a light surfer, but for me personally, it really depends on my headspace.
Okay. Let's say you saw one of your clients stuck in that stiff headspace.
Like I do all the time.
Yeah. And you wave them in. What do you say to them?
I get them to start again. So I do what I do to myself, is we go into the beach, we sit there, we take a breath, we pretty much, I say, just scrap that surf session, whether we need to go for a quick run, go and do some laps in the pool, get back in rhythm with our breathing before we re-enter the water, reassess the surf conditions. We just sort of scrap that and start again. Yeah, you need to reset. You have to. Otherwise, you end up injuring yourself. You end up blaming yourself, and it can be really damaging to your surfing. So many women say, I tried surfing and I tried it and tried it and tried it and I can't get it. I can't do it. I just keep doing this or I keep doing that. And I'll say, well, to a certain extent, it's your ability. But if you don't understand the environment, say you're always surfing on a low tide because it's shallower. So you go, sweet, I can stand better. So I'm going to go out in these conditions. You are none the wiser. It's really damaging because they're going to nosedive and nosedive and nosedive and nosedive. So you have to get people out of the water, reset. Let's understand our environment, start all over again. And we go back out. And some days you just have that bad day.
Yeah.
That's just the way it is. I had that with a client the other day. We went out to go for a surf and then we were out there and she caught a couple of waves and it was fine. And she's like, I'm not comfortable. I'm not feeling it today. And it wasn't big conditions or anything. She just wasn't in the right headspace. And she's like, I just want to sit out here. I said, that's fine. It's fine. Hop off our boards, go for a swim. Let's just do that. Yeah, I think you need to understand what it is you want to get out of that and how you can get in rhythm with the water. Yeah.
Do you cue people on what to focus on when they're in the water?
Yeah. So I do a thing called single focus where I implement that on students I've had before. I can't do it on someone I've never had before. These are people where I've had them for maybe 2 or 3 classes. So I know the things we need to focus on. And with most people, their mistakes as they advance come from their skills from the very beginning. Are they actually popping up properly? Is their hips and shoulders rotated correctly? All that sort of stuff. So it's, say someone just cannot seem to take a more hollow wave. They always do a heavy, straight bottom hand turn and then the wave goes past them. So they just can't quite get ahead of the wave. And they're like, this happens to me all the time. If I'm surfing a fuller wave, it's fine. You go, okay, well, let's see your pop-up. And they'll show me their pop-up. They're looking down at their feet. Of course that's going to happen. All right. You're looking down at your feet or you're looking down in front of the board, and that means that your whole body is rotated incorrectly and you're going straight. And then you have to do a heavy bottom hand turn where you lose all your speed to then re-chase to get ahead of the wave. So let's just focus on one thing in that next surf. And I get them to write that thing on the nose of their board where it says, look up. And for 2 weeks, they have to have that written on their board. Look up. So that when they're in the water without me, it's as if I'm saying it to them. So, and it's just flashing there in their face. That's what I did when I was trying to progress. I would just write one thing. And once I knew that I really had that one thing, then I could move on to the next thing. But you have to see what you're doing wrong, bring it back down to the basics, fix that thing so that all that stuff further down the track instantly starts to work. So, yeah.
Now, you said you've worked with male and female clients, but you're currently specializing in working with female clients. Now, are there any gender-specific considerations that surf coaches should take into account when coaching females?
Firstly, I do coach some men. I do a father-daughter program, which is one of my favorites. But yeah, most of my clients are women. Something that is gender specific.
Or maybe a better way to put the question is, do you ever see male surf coaches just missing something when they're working with female clients?
Yeah, definitely. A lot of my students come to me who have previously had male coaches, and I'm not saying that male coaches are bad in any way or anything like that. I have a lot of friends who are male coaches, but one thing is that when a woman sees a man do something, it doesn't build up their confidence. If a woman sees a woman do something, they instantly feel like there's a chance they could do it. So that's where that barrier is already broken down by me being a female. And so that's kind of I'm lucky in that way. But I'd have to say there are some things that are really relevant to women that aren't so much to men, and it's their mental state. Women really go into the water with a completely different outlook than men do, and I think that that's something that really hasn't been tapped into before, and I think that that's why a lot of the women are coming to the school, is understanding, why do I want to be in the water? If they can understand that, then they're more willing to go out there. So I'd say with the emotional side of things, it's really, really relevant for women. Whereas in men, it's sort of, when I'm coaching the men, it's kind of like, all right, mate, this is what I want you to focus on. And, I want you to do this with your body positioning. This is the kind of wave that we have. Let's go. And they just want to go out there. Their emotional state is almost irrelevant. They're not aware of it at all. They kind of just want to get out there, want to give it their all. They get a bit frustrated, then they do a really good wave and they're like, yes, okay, sweet, I feel satisfied. And it's really that quite simple. But women, they're kind of, their emotional state is really, I had a really bad sleep last night, or, I think I'm getting my period, and so, I'm my body's sore, or whatever it is. There's always something before a class that I'm alerted on that will give me an idea of how they're going to perform in the water. And if you disregard that, then they don't feel like you understand why they're out there. And they're kind of like, he just kept pushing me onto the waves, and I didn't really want to catch those waves, or they were too big, or they were this and that. And, it's really, really damaging to their whole outlook of surfing, because they feel forced to do something by someone that just doesn't understand. So Chix Surf School was not something I ever planned to open up, ever. It's one of my friends got me back in the water by wanting me to coach her daughter after I'd had my first child. And I actually coached her through my second pregnancy with a big round belly. And I then started coaching a couple of other girls and their mums and their mums' friends. And I would say to them, what do you need? What is it that you need? I'm here with no expectations, and I'm just doing this because I love being in the water and I love being able to help other women. And it just grew from there. And so through all these experiences over the last few years, every single client I've had, it's understanding their mental state that has allowed me to get them to improve. Without understanding their mental state, they don't improve, and we actually end up not working well together. So I think that's a really, really important part of it. And if you disregard the mental state, their emotional state, they're not going to progress. They're just not.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good advice. It's probably good advice for all surfers, really. Yeah,
men surf for a certain reason. You know, and they do, it is an emotional outlet for a lot of men. That's why they do it. They feel grounded. We all feel grounded. You walk down to the beach, your toes touch the water, and you instantly feel connected. But whether we're aware of that or not is a completely different thing. And naturally, women are more emotional than men. We're aware of the fact that we're emotional. You know, that's kind of the stigma of women, right? But some men are maybe not as aware of their emotions, and so they don't really know why they surf or what drives them to get out in the water. They're like, oh yeah, it's fun. And it's like, yeah, but what's deeper than that? And I can't push that. It's not in my space to push that on someone. Women have come to me as an outlet so that they can progress with their surfing, not me pushing it on them.
Yeah, big difference.
It's a massive difference, because I do have some girls who they just want to progress. It's all about their progression. Great. They know why they're out there and they just do what they have to do. So it's really technical surfing, technical coaching.
So your role as a coach is to discover their intrinsic motivation, not to motivate them.
Yeah.
And that makes sense.
Yeah.
It's like if you're trying to motivate someone to progress in a certain way, then you're just pushing your stuff onto them.
Exactly.
But if you dig deeper and get to know them and find out why they're surfing, then, they're always going to be motivated.
Yeah.
And if they lose motivation, you just remind them.
That's what I'm there for. I'm their kickstart. I'm their coffee drink in the mornings at 5 o'clock in the morning. Come on, let's go.
Yeah.
But I do these Chix Surf School clinics, these two-day clinics where we it's all about high-end progression. It's really nutting out habits and understanding how we can get our bodies to shift so that we can, because we all plateau with our surfing, right? You kind of like, yeah, I'm progressing, and then you go, oh, I've been in this state for like 4 or 5 months. Okay, so we do these clinics and it's all about their progression, but it's phenomenal how many clients have contacted me afterwards and been like, I had a surf, my first surf with you, and I sat in my car for half an hour crying afterwards because I felt so proud of myself, or you made me really realize why I needed to be in the water. And that's a phenomenal thing. For me, that makes me want to cry almost, because I'm so glad that these women are exploring themselves in the water and finding where their strengths and their weaknesses are and not being ashamed of those things. I always say after a surf, let's look at what we did well. Your pop-up was great. Yes, okay, maybe we can work on this and that, but you should be really proud of yourself. You went out in those waves today and they're bigger than you've ever surfed before. Be proud of yourself, And so to end a session like that, you're kind of going, yeah, okay, I know where I need to improve. I know what I need to do. So I've got that motivation, but I did a good job, And to start your day, 90% of my work is early mornings. So for women to start their day like that, you're then embedding that into your everyday life. You bring that into your work environment, you bring that into your home environment, to the environment with your children, and that's where my work, I feel that I'm the most proud of, is shifting their everyday life. It's teaching them to look more positively at things, and using surfing or using the water as that tool, it's such a natural thing, and I am only teaching what I've done for myself. So to have so many women really resonate with that is a really, really cool thing. It's really cool because it's changing their day-to-day life, and they're loving surfing for the right reasons. And that's why I say it's about, you want to be soul surfing. The best surfer out there for me is a soul surfer, because they're doing it for the right reasons. So.
Yeah, I find sometimes, rather than the surfer being on the path to surf mastery, sometimes the surfing or surfing itself is mastering them.
Yeah.
Whereas if the waves are bad, they're in a bad mood.
Yeah, but how can you turn that bad or negative into a positive?
Well, yeah, I mean, based on what you're saying now, it's like, well, still go surfing, just maybe take a different board and change your expectations.
Yeah, definitely. Or, okay, there's no waves at all, so let's go into the pool. Let's go swimming. Let's go practice our duck diving, whatever it is. Let's go do some core stability on the beach. Whatever it is, stay within that environment though. Don't just walk away from it. Don't look at the surf and go, oh, it's too big today. Okay, I'm out of here. Go and do something else within that environment so that you're not feeling defeated by it. Stay within that environment. Go do your laps in the pool, in the ocean pool, where you're still within that environment so that when you leave the beach, you still feel like you were immersed within that particular condition of that day. That's, for me, I found that was a big thing for me, was just being immersed in that environment every single day allowed me to feel more confident. So even if the conditions were too big or I had an injury or wasn't in the right headspace, put my flippers on, go diving, go swim, go get sucked up and churned around in the whitewash. Just get into that environment because it's always going to be beneficial. No matter what, it's always going to be beneficial. So...
yeah. I agree. If there's ever a time where I don't have enough time to go for a surf, I'll definitely just go for a quick swim. And you just feel that instant connection with the ocean, and you still get some of that.
Yeah, you feel satisfied. Yeah, and you're like, okay, I feel grounded now, so I can keep going on what I need to do. You're still getting that feeling that the surfing gives you.
Mm. Now, you spent some time as an Olympic level snowboarder.
Yeah, I was with the Olympic development team for a little while.
What did you learn from the elite level sport that can be applied to the everyday surfer?
I think being at that higher level at a sport and dedicating everything you have to that sport, your mental state, your physical state, everything, and really understanding a sport like that. I use a lot of what I experienced in my snowboarding training, in my coaching, because it taught me to really understand my body and my body's ability. So I was originally trained as a border cross rider. I'm not sure if you know border cross. It's a very aggressive sport. So you've got 5 people that go down a course all at once, and we wear like motorbike helmets, we wear body armor, and you've got to go down this course. It has berms and moguls and alligator pits and flags and all this sort of stuff. And it's whoever, the first 2 to make it down to the bottom, go through to the next round. I loved that sport. I loved the adrenaline of it, and I loved understanding how my body had to work. And so that taught me to be very body aware. It taught me to be confident in my ability. So, and what we've spoken about is I teach that in the surfing. Understand your body's ability. Understand what you need to do out in that environment. So I do some surf fitness stuff, working on your core and all those sorts of things, your legs, your arms, general fitness, your paddling, all that sort of stuff. But I try and work on staying focused as you're doing it, not being distracted. So we'll get one thing to focus on, whether it's a tree or whatever, and there'll be people walking past with dogs and cars and all that sort of stuff. And you need to focus on that one thing, so you can start to pay attention to what your body's doing, because as soon as you lose focus, you'll go off balance, or you lose that rhythm. So I did learn that with my snowboarding. A lot of what I learned with my snowboarding is embedded within the school, and it's, as I said, I coach through my experiences, and my snowboarding experience through injuries as well taught me to have endurance and taught me to focus on and getting not using that injury as a weakness. So, I've had a knee operation, so I'm a little bit weaker on that leg. Okay, yeah, but how long ago did you have it? Like 5, 6, 7 years ago? Let's move past that. Let's readjust our surfing so that it accommodates for your injury, not using that injury as a weak point. Because if you feel weak, you feel vulnerable. If you feel vulnerable, you hesitate. If you hesitate, you hurt yourself. That all feeds back to that whole state of anxiety, especially with women. They're like, oh, I've got kids and, I don't want to hurt myself out in the water. And you're more likely to hurt yourself if you're going out there with that headspace. So a lot of what I put in the school is through the experiences of snowboarding.
Yeah. So when you guys were training, obviously you did a lot of snowboarding, but you also did a lot of training in a gym environment?
Yeah, with a gym environment, I preferred to train outdoors. I ran a lot outside. I did a lot of my body training outdoors.
But it was focused body training, yeah?
Yeah, it was very isolated solo training. So I really like to, when I'm doing something, I really like to sit inside myself and feel the effects of what I'm doing. And so,
yeah, But that's an interesting thing you say is like when you were training, you were training, you were feeling it. And a lot of people go to the gym and just, watch the music videos or put headphones on and then it's almost like, you're kind of working your body, but you're not developing body awareness.
Everyone does exercise for their own reasons. A lot of people do it to stay fit. Other people do it because they love to connect with their bodies. They love to really understand how their body works. And I am definitely one of those people.
That perspective sounds like it's a key concept for helping people or helping us be less anxious in the water. And it is a perspective, isn't it?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
It's as simple as changing your attitude. Like, we use the example of training. You might go to the gym and you say, okay, I've got to do this program. It's like, oh, it's going to hurt. It's going to burn my legs. Oh, I hate the feeling. Or you can go like, oh, I wonder what this is going to feel like.
Yeah, exactly. Like you're
curious.
Yeah, and you give in to it. Instead of using it as like, oh, this is going to hurt, I'm going to be sore, and I mean, like, I'll have an amazing body at the end of it, but you don't like the journey to get there. It's very, I find that a really toxic way of looking at things. So,
but surfers can have that same perspective with the ocean.
Oh yeah, definitely, and you see it in surfers all the time. They're aggressive out there. God, so many people are aggressive. Most Sydney surfers are aggressive in the water. And it's funny because out of the water, they're really lovely people. And it's like they suddenly have this right to be bitter and dominating and all that. I mean, I've had guys say to me, or people, in my own hometown, which I grew up in, get out of here, or, you don't belong here, I'm a local. And I'm like, I've lived in Manly for 32 years. Like, so it's this interesting side to it all where everyone is out there for a different reason. And I look at people like that and it makes me really glad to not be that person because I'm not surfing for that reason.
And from a visual perspective, that's the surfer that has no flow.
Yeah, no. They may be hitting the lip and being aggressive and this and that, and that's great. If that's what you want from surfing, awesome. Go learn from that person. That's really good. And I'm not saying that's a bad way to surf or the wrong way to surf. That's what that person's needs are, and good for them. For me, it's just not the reason why I'm out there. And if it ever becomes the reason why I'm out there, I think my school would die, really. I lose the soul in my soul surfing.
From a technical perspective, what are some of the most common mistakes you see people making technically?
Technically, they're pretty basic. People looking down. With an advanced surfer, a lot of the time it's actually shifting that arch in their back so that they're bringing their weight back a bit more. Especially in the guys that I coach, they're quite front heavy. So when they do their push-up, they're not actually doing that full extension in their upper body. And if you're tall, if you're 6 foot, 6'2", that's a lot of weight being forced in the nose of a shortboard. And so it's giving you that time to really arch your body so that weight is shifting back. And that can be quite an uncomfortable position, especially if you're a stiff body. So that's a really common one. And I don't think people really realize the significance of a push-up. You teach people to push up or their hands either go on the rails and they push up, or when they push up, their arms are still pretty bent. You should really be doing a full extension, because an advanced surfer, yes, sometimes they pop up really quickly, but other times they push up and they stay in that position for a while before they pop up, before they actually bring their feet through. And it's because they're feeling the wave, whether it's taken them or not, whether the board is balanced. If the board is not balanced, you cannot get to your feet. Your feet will come in incorrectly. So your push-up is a really important part of standing up, and I think a lot of people disregard it a lot. So looking up, making sure your push-up is really stable and you're extended correctly, and making sure your feet come through in exactly the same position every single time. So a confident surfer is a competent surfer. So you need to make sure that your technique is repetitive. If, a lot of people, as even as old fellas, they go, yeah, sometimes I got it, sometimes I pop up and it just all works. And other times, it's so embarrassing, I fall over myself. And it's because they don't actually know where their feet go. So, if you're probably thinking about it right now, where do my feet go? Where is the exact position that my front foot goes? What angle should my foot be in? All that sort of stuff. So a lot of people focus more on their front foot than their back foot, and your back foot is key to being able to surf your board properly. I mean, both feet are obviously important, but if your back foot isn't in the right position, it's really damaging for your surfing. So I obviously don't want to give too much away, but there are technical things, when you're trying to create something of a wave. A lot of people just go down the line, and they have the idea that a wave generates speed. We actually generate speed on a wave. We create speed on a wave. Not the wave creates speed for us. We actually have to generate speed. That's why you pump down the line to then do that big end turn. You can't just go straight down across a wave and then try and turn and actually try and bring it all the way back around. You haven't generated any speed. So I think that's another thing that people don't quite understand, is how important speed generation is. Not opening up your shoulders. That's another really common one. Lots of people say, oh yeah, on my toe side turns are fine. I don't mind going on my front side, but my back side, no, I'm not very good on my back side. My backhand turns, no, they're not very good. Okay, there's a reason for that. And it's like 90% of people, when they're learning how to surf or they're progressing with their surfing, they'll choose to go on their toe side or their front side, not their back side. And there's a reason for that, So all these things, I can go into the mindset of surfing, but then I'm able to break down a lot of the technical stuff when it comes to what our body needs to do out there, because I see it, and I've seen it for 10 years.
Yeah. Do you find some of these technical aspects improve themselves once you get deeper into why they're surfing and their awareness and things?
I don't think you can do one without the other. So I can't say to someone, oh, you need to understand emotionally why you're out there. They're not going to improve. They will improve on that side of things, but you then need to link that with what they're doing incorrect. So, you can't quite lock onto a wave. Why is that? Okay, what do we need to work on? And how do we then complement that with being in the right headspace? So you've got your technical side, you have your emotional side. If you can mush those together, you've got a phenomenal surfer. But if you do one without the other, I feel your progression is much slower. So many women say to me, oh, I asked this person,
how do you get better at surfing? And he'll say, oh, it's just time in the water. It's just time in the water. You just got to spend time in the water. The more time you spend in the water, the better you'll get. And how do I ride my board better? Oh, you just pop up. You just get up, and that's really actually not helpful at all. Even though they don't know what to tell that person because they actually haven't thought about that before. They actually don't know what they're doing. Okay, they may be a good surfer, but have they actually thought about it? I started surfing when I was about 5, and so it is a natural thing for me. And coaching was great because it taught me to understand what was I actually doing. Before that, I had no idea. I could just do it. So you need to give someone confidence with information as well. You've got to inform them as to why something is happening so that they know what they need to do. It all comes down to, what do I need my body to do? If you understand your environment, you understand your ability, what do I need to do to ride that wave? Not just look at it and go, I'm sure the more I look at this, it's going to start to make sense, right?
So it's a combination of...
It's a combination of being educated and understanding your ability. Physically and mentally understanding your ability. It's... one doesn't work without the other. I feel one. I'm sure. Yeah, you can be educated on how to do what you need to do, but then I think you're a soulless surfer. If you put the emotion in there, it allows your body to flow.
Do you use video coaching for self-awareness?
I do a lot of surf analysis. Yeah. So, when someone's in the water, we film them and then we break down that video and allow them to see what their body's doing wrong, but also you can see a shift in their mental state. So a lot of women will catch waves, paddle, 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 and go, ooh, and sort of pull off. Or paddle, 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 and stand up and go, ah, and, they're... So, and you can see instantly, you can see their face change.
So when you're analysing video, you're not just talking about what they were technically doing, but also
emotionally.
Do you remember how you felt about that wave and why you made that decision, and you're getting deeper into that?
Yeah, oh yeah, definitely. Because if you hesitate, and that's where it comes down to, you're in control of the wave, not the wave's in control of you. If you hesitate, the wave will go past you. It will either suck you over the falls or you'll miss it. If it sucks you over the falls, the more times you get sucked over the falls, the more damaging it is. The more you hesitate, the less you'll catch waves. These things all have a pattern. If you're going in, I always say to my students, you see that wave? If you turn around, you're committed. There's no going back. So if you're not sure, don't turn around, which means you have to read the water properly. You have to read that wave properly, because if you're turning, I'm going to make you go. And if you hesitate, I'm going to push you. I will push you onto that wave so that you've made that decision. You have to go. You need to make sure you know your ability and you've read the wave correctly. So it's these steps that I take very slowly with people, which builds up their confidence through the knowledge of understanding what they need to do.
So you're coaching commitment as well.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Definitely.
Commitment is a big thing. And I remember I had gotten to a pretty good stage with my surfing, and I was a young teenager, and I was out there at North Stain, and it was about 5-6 foot, and it was big for me. I was like, whoa, really, feeling unsure and paddled for a couple of waves, and pulled off. Paddled for a couple of waves, and pulled off. And, there was these guys around me that would have gone, and I did it again. I paddled and pulled off at the last moment, and a guy came up to me and lost it at me. He said, if you're going to paddle for a wave, you go or don't go at all. And I was like, and I ended up in tears, and I went into the beach. This guy yelled at me, blah, blah, but it's true. If I turn around and go for that wave, I take it. Because if I keep pulling off, not only does someone else lose the wave, the chance of catching the waves, but I'm actually feeding to my anxiety. and it creates a bad habit where I think that that's okay. And really, what's the worst that can happen? I'm going to go over the falls. I used to snowboard. If you fell, you hurt yourself. It's water. It doesn't, to a certain extent, it doesn't hurt. And if I've read the conditions correctly and I'm within my comfort zone, I should be okay. So I need to just go, and women say to me all the time when, I've got more advanced students and we're in big surf, and they say, what do you do, when you're going for that wave? What is it you think? And I'm like, just go. That's all I think. I just go. Because I've assessed the surf. I've assessed the crowd. I understand my environment. I know my ability. So I just go. And that's a very light way to think when you're out there and you've got all these things going on and all these waves and all this water and all this stuff. Just go. What do you have to lose? So sometimes getting smashed is the best thing because it shows you how bad it can be. And if you're okay, it's really not that bad.
Yep.
So
definitely. Yeah. If you just go and you fail, you still learn.
Well, I literally said this to 2 of my students yesterday. I said, if the conditions are too easy and you guys can ride these waves, there's nothing I can teach you. These were to women who were more advanced, intermediate to advanced. I need you to fall and make mistakes so I know what you're doing wrong. You don't learn from riding a wave, you learn from falling. That's where you learn. So the more you fall, the more you learn. Yeah.
Who's your favourite surfer?
Probably, I don't know. I have different surfers that I love for different reasons. In the competitive side of who I am with my surfing, which is a big part of my surfing, even though it seems like I'm a super mellow surfer, I have that competitive drive quite a lot. I would have to say Joanne Defay. She's just... And I've actually become friends with her, which is amazing, but she's phenomenal. She's just glued to a board, and the way she surfs, she's amazing. She really, you can see her reading that wave and lining herself up to do exactly what she wants to do. So I admire her, and she's such a nice person as well. But, she surfs tiny surf, big surf, all sorts of surf because she just loves it. So I'd have to say competitive-wise and for my competitive surfing, I find her very inspirational. But then, there's a woman that surfs here at Monaval who's on a longboard, and... I'm not going to say her name, but she's out there every day, and she's older than I am. I'm not going to guess, but she's beautiful. She just dances on a wave, and the way that she rides her mal it's like a dream, She's just gliding, and she turns, and her body bends, and she just does it with a smile on her face. And she's out there every day. I see it every day that I'm coaching. She's out there, rain, hail, or shine, and she's such a lovely person as well, and I hope that I have that mentality at her age. I really hope that I love it as much as she does at her age, because especially for my daughters, I would love them to see that part of my surfing. So, yeah, there's different people for different reasons.
Yep. Okay, what about, do you currently have a favourite surfboard?
I would actually have to say no. I don't.
What are you currently riding?
I'm in the water every day. I ride a different board almost every hour. Fun-wise, I would have to say my 7.6 Foamy. I love that board. It is so much fun. Obviously I'm on it for work, but it's just 7.6s are probably one of the funnest sizes ever. I find anything bigger than an 8 I struggle with. There's just too much nose in the board. And so, yeah, probably mini mals fun-wise, really just doing it for a laugh. I'd have to say my 7.6 Foamy. I have my shortboard, my 5'8", which is super, super fun. But I've just gotten a 5'5" torpedo shape, and it's that thing gets on anything. And it's got quad fins, and it's super loose, but allows you to... You can drive into turns, but then when you get those fins out of a wave, it just slides. So that's a good challenge for me because it really forces me to stay low. But it depends on what I want in my surf. It really does. Like if it's a 1 foot day, get on a mal. Super fun. I'll surf, as I said to you before, I'll surf anyone's board and I'll have a laugh doing it. Whether it's a foamy, whether it's a 9'6" mal, you know, whatever it is, as long as I'm out there, I'll surf anything.
Shout out to your shaper. Who's your shaper?
Yeah, Marcus Gray, Weapon Surfboards. He really is amazing. I've been working with him for a while, quite a few years actually. I would say close, 10. I would say about 10 or so years. And we just play. You know, I say to him, you know, I lived in Bali for many years, and I would come home and say to him, I just really want to focus on this one thing for the next 4 months, this one thing in my surfing, and we'd shape a board just for that, you know. Or I've had 2 kids, and so he would then make boards that were more buoyant and could accommodate for me getting my body back in the water. Or, you know, our next one is we're going to make a little fat round thing that's, you know, just going to be super cruisy. But we're always playing around with shapes, and he knows me. He knows my ability. He knows my background. He knows my injuries. And I am so grateful that I have that relationship with him, because he now shapes a lot of boards for my clients as they progress. And it's great because I can tell him their history. I can tell him their surfing and why they're out there and why I'm recommending a certain shape. And so, you know, one of my students, she just got the sickest board for her 17th birthday. And she was coming to me 3 days a week. And she was on a shortboard, and we've actually gone to a mini mal, because I don't think the shortboard complements her surfing. And Marcus, for her 17th birthday, just made her a board, and we went out on our first surf on it last week, and it was probably one of the best waves she's ever caught, you know. And that board just is everything we could have asked for it to be, you know. And it was great because I was able to tell him where she sat with her surfing, what she wanted out of her surfing, you know. And it's phenomenal that I can have that relationship with my shaper where he looks after my students as well. So, and he's willing to experiment, which I am as well. I'll ride anything. So let's make anything. That's what I reckon.
Yeah, it's awesome you can do that with your clients as well.
Yeah, well, they trust me. You know, my school, yes, I do have your beginner options, you know, your beginner group lessons and your one-off classes. It's really not what people come to me for. So I have my students for a year, 2 years, 3 years, whatever it is, because it's that ongoing ambition to want to soul surf, you know, and that's something that will take forever to find. And if I can make it enjoyable along the way, that's great. So, you know, if we can be on boards that complement that, even better. Yeah.
Cool. And where can people find you online?
If you go to chixsurfschool.com.au.
Spelt?
CHIX Surf School. Yeah, you can find all the information is on there. The site is forever changing because I have all these different little projects that I have going on at the moment, which is really exciting. The school is growing and growing and growing internationally, which is cool. So
internationally? How
yeah. So? Well, I get a lot of people from overseas emailing me and asking me questions, whether I've coached a friend of theirs or they've been referred to me. Like, you know, and they'll send me emails, oh, this is happening to me and I don't really understand why. Or, you know, my friend's come to you and she said this and this and this. And And, so I've put these clinics together, the Chix Surf School clinics, and there's people overseas asking me to go over there, and it's becoming almost quite a few times a week occurrence that people in similar areas are trying to convince me to come over and do clinics over there, to bring the products that I use over there and give them a taste of what we do. And so, we had a really successful clinic down in Merimbula, which was phenomenal. The women were amazing, and we had a huge group of women, and they all just killed it. They did so well. And, we've done an Ulladulla clinic, and we've done a couple more on the South Coast. We're about to do a Foster clinic. We're going to do a Bateman's Bay clinic. And these women, women talk. They talk. And so the word is getting out there that there's this experience where you can really understand why you're surfing. And there's nothing like what we're doing out there at the moment. There just isn't. It's always, oh yeah, come and do a learn to surf camp, or come and have a great surfing and health retreat, or, something like that, where it's not necessarily about understanding why we surf and progressing at the same time, but just going out there, catching a couple of waves, high five, you did a great job, woohoo, yay. That's kind of as far as it goes. But how can we go to a clinic, learn about our surfing, see what we're doing wrong, understand how our body needs to change, and then be given homework to keep progressing when that coach isn't around? That's cool. That's a really cool thing. And it's getting women motivated to be out there, to want to push themselves in a safe, educated, safe environment. So I don't know. I guess I'm a little bit of a kid in that way, where I'm like a little ball of energy as well. So I just get girls super pumped.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, I'll put links to your website and
Great.
everything else we've spoke about in the show notes.
Yeah, awesome.
And I really appreciate you taking the time to let me pick at your brain about surfing. I've learned a lot from me personally as a surfer, and also how I work with people as a surf coach as well. You've definitely made me think differently.
Oh, awesome.
I really appreciate that
No,
perspective.
that's great.
It's awesome, and hopefully the listeners feel the same. Please let us know some feedback.
Yeah,
Thank you.
that'd be cool. No worries. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
See ya.
Right. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. Hope you enjoyed that. Would love to hear your guys' feedback on Facebook. That would be awesome. Also, we hit 100,000 downloads a couple of weeks ago, so big thanks to everyone who shared this podcast with their friends, etc. I would also ask you guys, can you please just rate and review on iTunes? That helps a lot. People can find it, and the more people that find it, the more people that listen, the more guests I can get, and the higher quality guests I can get as well. So thanks. Until next time, get in the water. Thanks for tuning in to the Surf Mastery Podcast. Again, I'm your host, Michael Frampton. Make sure you subscribe so you can keep up to date with the latest interviews. Please share with your friends. Check us out on Facebook at Surf Mastery Surf. And if you're on iTunes, please go and give us a little rating. That'd be awesome. Until next time, keep surfing.